proactive environmentalist, entrepreneur, and an amazing actor. Sir is certainly a man with a mission. He has worked with the absolute giants. He has won several awards for his commendable work as a model and as an earth savior. Be it conserving biodiversity, strengthening our bond with nature, or serving the underprivileged, every action of his tells us that we can too leave a mark on the planet and not a scar. In an interactive session today, Sir is here with us to shine light upon the dangers encircling our nature and how can we rise and shine out of this pandemic. Welcome, Sir. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me here on this portal. I'm truly very glad to be here and sharing my views upon the socio-economic development for our green energy and environmental concerns. I think you guys are doing a wonderful job because by the end of it, one thing that matters the most is to spread awareness about these issues. They're truly important, not just to our country, but globally. And you guys are doing commendable jobs. So let's start.
Okay, so first, I have a question with you from you that
Yes, please.
why did you choose environmentalist over acting? Like, why did you change that?
I did it. This okay. Frankly speaking, I didn't choose anything over acting or anything like that. I started off very young, working as an actor. Doing acting was always a passion for me. I started with modeling, and thereafter I got into theaters. I had the opportunity to do one of the most amazing Bollywood musicals globally, and thereafter I did films, and I pursued my passion, and I was happy for what I did. It was post that I had to be attached to my roots as well, and being coming from an industrial background as my parents are. So the environmental concerns were something that were always very intriguing to me, and frankly speaking, they were pinching me a lot. Looking at the current scenarios, looking at what's been going on post the 1990s, how there was no global warming and everything, that probably the rise in temperature was just about a few 0.34 degrees Celsius, so nobody had issues. But in today's time, it is, and maybe that's why my father and we involved ourselves into the renewable energy sector, and through our means of green energy solutions and my social activities that I love to do for people. And I just considered it that unless people don't really believe in something, they're not truly passionate about it, then it's just a means to an end. It's supposed to be with a purpose, with a journey. And that's all that I'm trying to fulfill with my work.
Great, sir. Great.
So glad to hear that, sir. We can definitely see your activities and the impact they're making today.
Thank you.
So as we've seen in the past few months, that pollution has decreased a lot during the pandemic.
Right.
So how do we ensure that we maintain the same level of pollutants even after the lockdown?
See, ma'am, what we must understand that pollution, yes, has drastically decreased. It was actually drastically, it had decreased during the pandemic. Well, for 6 months, over 4 months, we all saw a complete lockdown globally. So due course of that time, we saw an AQI reading of approximately maybe 44, 47. We had not seen those kind of readings, at least in the past 17 to 18 years, which was a blessing in itself. I think the nature and the Earth's energies also needed time to revive itself. Post the lockdowns have happened now globally as well. And we've again started seeing hazardous readings like 474. And since the Diwali season and the wedding season and the winters have started, plus the crop harvesting has just started again, it's most likely to go up to 500. And frankly speaking, it's a matter of grave concern for everybody, not just in our nation, but everywhere. Because actually, the certain few reasons because of which this is happening is because of the agriculture sector. The agriculture sector is holding 11% responsibility for all the carbon emissions that are there. The transportation industry, which is holding responsibility of 27% carbon emissions globally. Then we have the industrial sector, in which we have all sorts of industries. And apart from that, we have the thermal power sector, which is a part of the industrial sector. Then we have the consumer and commercial sector, where we have hotels, restaurants, and other processes where we are heating and using unethical means of using fossils for heating solutions. Then, apart from that, we have the residential sector that is holding responsibility of 2% of these issues. Now, if you look at these readings that I've just told you, 89% you will find that the reasons for all the pollution and carbon emissions being used globally is due to utilization of fossils in forms of oil, natural gas, and coal. The only one way we can actually maintain this kind of AQI reading, which we have seen now, are through the further following points that I would like to enlighten to you all. Firstly, I feel that we must generate and promote the green energy sector a lot. In other means, we can also call it the green housing emissions against the use of fossils globally. We must invest into new technologies that bring further enlightenment to cleaner and sustainable solutions to have a sustainable planet. That is extremely important. Not just that, we need to promote sales and purchases of the electric vehicles. As I told you, that 27% responsibility lies with the transportation sector. That is a huge number. If you look at oil, for that matter, the carbon emissions per energy, or by the kilowatt per hour it is generated, or by per kcal, it is approximately 840 carbon emitting numbers. With coal, it is 1001. With natural gas, it is 460 carbon emitting numbers, which is why we need to look into solutions that are more greener. We need to adapt to solar. We need to adapt to hydro. We need to adapt to other renewable biomass. It's extremely important. These kinds of solutions have to be adapted. We must not just even do that, we must even need to investigate into new solutions that can capture the carbon emissions and turn it into clean energy. Those kind of new technologies also have to be looked into and have to be submitted by all countries, not just public enterprises, but private enterprises as well. More than that, I have been seeing that recently a lot of development has been taking place in the bioenergy sector, in the biofuel sector. But certain supportive measures for that also need to be taken in order to promote the welfare of our planetary solutions. More invasive purchase policies need to come into place. More stricter banking sector. The banking sector should personally make efforts, which they already are, I'm sure, but they need to make more efforts in order to prioritizing the green housing emission sector, or the bioenergy sector for that matter, so that our dependency can move from fossils to our unethical ways that we've been utilizing ever since the 1800s, and now get into a more cleaner platform. That is something that's extremely important. Unless people don't look into these factors, I don't know how will we be able to. If we look at the current scenario, above 3 lakh megawatt of power generation is still happening through the thermal power stations. I'm very happy to see the recent results where the government of India has brought in a new policy where co-firing of agro pellets and biocoal is being utilized. This is remarkable. This is something that could be a turning point for our country, and especially for the industrial sector. This could reduce the carbon emissions drastically, if so, dealt appropriately. And not just that, only one particular company through NTPC has started this as of now. I personally feel that this should be a mandatory policy for pan-India. I mean, you can look at this 3 lakh megawatts above. We can reduce the carbon emissions remarkably, because in comparison to coal, biocoal only has 24 carbon emitting points. Now imagine the kind of carbon emissions we can save. We can save our planetary conditions in comparison to 1001 to just 24. And that also goes through a very secure ESP system according to our previous 1986 Environmental Protection Act and the other state-governed industrial policies, which are anyways in place. We need to look at these solutions well in order to protect our environment.
Very well said, sir. The points highlighted by you are very important and should be taken into consideration, I must say.
Thank you.
Sir, as you mentioned before about global warming, what are your views on the Paris Climate Agreement? How efficient do you think it was, and has it made some impact?
Well, frankly speaking, the Paris Agreement is a very, very important point here. The truth is, I don't even know if most of the people know what the Paris Agreement is all about. So allow me a few minutes where I will enlighten you first as to what the Paris Agreement is. So the Paris Agreement was signed by 196 countries across the globe on the 12th of December in 2015 in Paris. The reason for the United Nations to have this agreement was to bring to attention of the world leaders that the global temperature is rising by an average of 3 degrees Celsius. It is not a good sign. To ensure that the global warming should be controlled, they had all the global leaders come in together, make a commitment on the United Nations platform that they will control the rise in temperature below 2 degrees and if possible then 1.5. Now, a lot of people have questions about this. Is this a right solution? Will this really help? 3 degrees Celsius and you're making promises about 1.5 and 2? Yes. Every step towards understanding where the flaws have been made and in order to correct them is a good solution. But we need to work on them. How do we work on them? The carbon emissions in these countries are remarkable and too much. It is the renewable energy projects that are to be executed. This is what this agreement defines. The focus from the fossil carbon emissions needs to move to the greenhouse emission sector. This is what this agreement defines. The investment strategies to be implemented to support the electrical, bioenergy, and other renewable energy sectors. This is what this agreement defines. Apart from that, not just this, it also clearly states that it is not about the commitments that are coming. It is not about the commitments that are going to each country to reduce the carbon emissions by switching on to more cleaner solutions, but to have executed these projects. That is what's important. Apart from that, this Paris Agreement even also stated that with each 5 years, every country is supposed to be giving a status report back to the United Nations so that the United Nations can look into this as to, yes, that each country, whosoever is made a pact to be a part of this agreement, will and is making the right efforts so that they can continue their efforts. Apart from that, the one good thing that also came, see, every country has not developed till now. We do have a lot of developing countries. The technologies that have reached in the first and the second and the third part for most countries in the world are not available everywhere. Yet, in order to support them, I thought that this was a wonderful part of the agreement that they made sure that $100 billion every year from the developed countries and through the United Nations should be distributed to the developing countries so that they have a fighting chance in order to do what's right for our environment and for the better sustainability of our planet. I think this was a very good thing. I personally feel that this agreement is very important at this juncture, in the history of global leaders, realizing the true importance of environment issues occurring across everywhere. Now, it has helped us with beating plastic pollution. It is certainly helping us with global warming scenario. It is helping us with the climate shift and climate change, air pollution, and most of all, biodiversity. It's a very important point. Most people don't talk about biodiversity today. But yes, biodiversity is also a part of this. And I'm glad that people are looking at this platform. I'll tell you something. It was when the problem actually started of growing carbon emissions and global warming was very much earlier in the 1800s. So in the 1800s, during the industrialization, we saw a slight rise in temperature where it used to be actually in minus 0.37 degrees. The planetary temperature started rising. When it came to the 1900s, it became a little above minus 0.14 degrees. When we got to the 1950s, it became in plus. That is where the problem started occurring more. It was by the 2000 that we saw remarkable temperatures on an average of 0.75 degrees increasing. By the time we are now in 2021, from above that, from 1 degree reaching to 2 degrees, now we are increasing at least we are increasing 3 degrees Celsius annually, which is not a good sign. This agreement is surely effective for some countries on the long run and on the short run as well, as long as the strict policies, as long as the strict focus on the bioenergy sector is maintained for sure. It is not just about the commitment that people are making, but most of all the execution, how it is coming in place. You know, another very good point about the Paris Agreement that remained was 172 countries out of the 196 countries that were a part of this agreement. They also confirmed that by 2030, they are planning to go carbon zero. In my opinion, I think that this is a wonderful thing to make a commitment. But can it happen by 2030? That is the big question. Well, currently the new things that I have personally seen in the bioenergy sector, yes, there is a possibility. But will it happen by 2030? I frankly speaking, no. In my opinion. And I mean no disrespect to anybody or any governing body working anywhere at all. I feel that yes, but it is a possibility in the coming decades that this far-fetched dream is possible. That is when we will see where the electric stations have already come in place. The challenges of having the e-charging stations are already in place. Apart from that, more and more investments in the green housing sector have been made. Biocoals are promoted, biofuels are promoted, bioenergy power is promoted, and a shift with the co-firing methods and co-blending methods in the industrial policies, which, by the way, the 2018 biofuel policies are very favorable to this as well. But the execution is required. That is all that this is all dependent upon.
I must say, sir, these policies are really, really important for our planet, I must say. And
absolutely,
like you've said, you know, it's all in the execution. We really need to work on that. Over to you, Ria.
Very well said, sir. So my
Thank
next
you.
question to you is, due to harvest season, the government has seen a lot of pollution. Like we have also seen, because of the practices of stubble burning of farmers to clear their fields. So stubble burning, as you know, is the major reason of the air pollution in the northwestern states. So do you think that necessary steps are taken by the government to prevent it or to reduce its impact this time? And also, what methods can be employed to tackle the crop waste being produced?
See, let me explain you something about stubble burning. Since I'm a part of this sector, and I have actually studied this in great depth as to how from point A to point Z everything takes place, and how its utilization can happen, and what are the challenges, and what are the possibilities that can grow with it. So, in my opinion, what I feel, this practice has been happening for almost hundreds of years in the agriculture sector. Earlier, it used to take place in South America as well, in China as well. It used to take place in Southern Europe states as well. So, how do we change that? Firstly, we need to understand, in order to change these things, there has to be a source of utilization for it. So, you've asked a very important question. We all can feel that the effects of the base crop burning are there. Sitting in our homes, we know that. But in my opinion, I feel that yes, surely this is possible. We can stop these carbon emissions. How? Firstly, we need to find a means of utilization for them. Recently, like I was telling you, a new policy was made where the government of India ensured through the National Thermal Power Corporation that crop burning should be stopped. How? Because earlier there was no source of utilization for the stubble. Not just for the stubble. The stubble remains only till 8 or 9, 12 inches. Apart from that, if you take out 1 ton of crop, there is approximately 2.5 to 3 tons of waste. What happens to that waste? These straw of not just of rice, wheat, jawar, and at least 6 to 8 more crops. The problem with it is it's a very harsh raw material. This kind of raw material is extremely harsh and cannot be utilized very easily. So for that, what the government did, they implemented a co-firing policy, which is remarkable. This policy actually helps, and this purchase pattern that National Thermal Power Corporation as the first beginner step that they've made is remarkable. Right now they have started up by utilization of 5%. through their thermal power plants for co-firing of these agro waste in the form of biocoal, where they convert it into pellets. The challenge that I have seen with it is that it's a good policy. The technology, basic technology in India is available, where all the soft kind of fuels can be utilized for this converting it into biopellets and utilization for co-firing. But the major problem is straw being a very harsh raw material because of its sulfur content and high alkaline content. It leads to corrosion in the standard plant and machinery or any industrial boiler for that matter. In order to utilize that, the biggest challenge is that this technology, which is currently available in Europe, must be brought in. Unless this technology comes here, or someone develops this technology or does a tie-up and bring them here, we might not be able to utilize the stubble and the straw due to which agro crop waste burning is actually happening. So this is something that's extremely important. Apart from that, when you also asked me that is the government making good efforts or not? Yes, they are making good efforts. I just told you they finally now have a utilization method for that. They are bringing awareness programs for that. They have brought subsidy for that. They are providing farmers that extra machinery and at lower cost rates from the government and agriculture machinery suppliers, so that they can separate the crop from the waste. So yes, these kind of implementations of good policies have happened. But as long as we do not have the technology in place here in our country, we will not be able to utilize the complete potential. By the end of it, this crop burning will probably still continue. The laws can definitely stop them. But to what extent? That is the big question. That is something that I cannot answer at this stage unless we see that people are able to bring this technology in India and put their hand into the sector that mostly people do not want to get into. This is something that's most important. Over to you. Next question, please.
Okay. So what do you think about the massive pollution created by Beirut's deadly explosion?
Wow. Okay. Frankly speaking, the unfortunate explosion or the Beirut blast, as we call it, was a devastating moment for everybody across the globe. The unforeseen explosion that took place with the loss of lives of multiple people and injuries became a heartfelt and very disturbing moment for everybody. I know that to the best of my knowledge, what I am aware of, that due to almost 2,750 tons of ammonia nitrate and seized non-nuclear weapon explosive and ammunition led into some kind of a blast. How it actually happened, how it did not happen, well, no one can really state because the investigation probably is still very much on in their respective country. My heartfelt regrets for everyone there. But I can only imagine the kind of pollution that must have spread through this due to the carbon emissions and through the radiation that must have affected the air, soil, and water, all three. So I'm not sure how to really enlighten you as to what extent it must have. But I know that there was a 10-kilometer blast radius, and something like that cannot be very easily avoidable to the kind of pollution it might have caused, not only to the great nation of Lebanon, but the neighboring countries and continents as well.
Right, sir. Right, sir. Yeah, sir. So, sir, my next question for you is,
yes, please.
Bhavla Foundation has completed 22 years of its service this year, and
yes.
You have been working with this organization.
Yes.
So, why don't you tell us something about its various program and awareness?
Well, okay. So the Bhamla Foundation has completed 22 glorious years. I personally have been involved for part of this foundation under the leadership of Mr. Asif Bhamla since the past 6 years now. In my time, what I have seen is great efforts everywhere, remarkably, especially in regards to awareness programs on all sorts of levels in respect to the environment. But I'd like to tell you exactly how this really started. 22 years ago, when Sri Asif Bhamla started this foundation, he started serving the people on ground level everywhere. It was feeding the children. It was helping children with education. It was helping people get into old age homes to have a good and comfortable life at the most crucial times. You know how they say is during the childhood and the old age is the most important time where they need comforting and help. It was during those times that Sri Asif Bhamla actually helped, and the Bhamla Foundation helped everybody there. It was ahead of 2000 when, you know, our country and globally we all started seeing a lot of non-communicable diseases that started coming up: TB, polio, and other diseases. So thereafter, Bhamla Foundation started catering towards that. Now, this was a very, very far-fetched thing that Bhamla Foundation understood that in the coming years, that environment and the environmental issues through global warming and carbon emissions are definitely going to lead to a lot of problems. So since the past 11 years, Bhamla Foundation has been working remarkably in respect to the environment. We have held multiple events. We have held green marathons. We have had songs made in Bollywood that we have released globally. We were truly, truly honored when we were also provided support through the Ministry of Forest and Climate Change. Apart from that, we had extended support from the United Nations, and we were able to help concepts such as air pollution, water pollution, beat plastic pollution, cleaning Mumbai streets, the issues with the mangroves and biodiversity. So, I think that Bhamla Foundation, in my eyes, is one of the most remarkable foundations that has been working for the welfare of people in Maharashtra and in other states wheresoever their activities lies. During the pandemic, for that matter, a lot of people were unfed. They were not receiving the right treatment. They were not receiving the right, not that the governments were not actually helping the people. Definitely they were. But certainly कहीं ना कहीं awareness पहुंचने में, कहीं ना कहीं लोगों की मदद करने में वक्त लग जाता है, and कभी कभार कुछ लोगों तक मदद नहीं पहुंच पाती है. I was truly proud being a part of this foundation when I saw that more than 1.5 lakh people were helped by Bhamla Foundation. I myself was very proud of myself when it was a very warm and grateful feeling when I understood that I was able to help more than 6,500, 7,000 people here in New Delhi. So, you know, efforts like this can never be unseen and are always going to be appreciated in the eyes of the world. As long as people like Mr. Bhamla and others anywhere in the country who are wanting to do good for the socio-economic upliftment of the society and people, it's truly commendable, I must say.
Totally, sir. I mean, they're doing great work and it's really inspirational for us as well. And really, okay. So, Auric Industries is working towards energy generation from only green and clean solutions and are currently involved in the production of biomass power, solar energy, and ethanol. With these new sources of clean and green and renewable energy coming up, what do you think the future of energy generation in India is going to look like? And also, what is Auric planning to do in this field?
Okay. Yes, you have stated very correctly, by the way. Auric Industries Limited is, as being an independent energy producer in India, has kept its focus with investments majorly in the bioenergy sector, along with solar power. Currently, Auric Industries Limited is soon to commence generation of energy with India's first international sized biocoal project, along with a 15 megawatt biomass power plant and a bioethanol distillery with a unique synergy that nobody in the world has ever done before. This synergy, this concept was truly made an in-house innovative solution by the promoters of Auric Industries, along with the valued technical and team members at Auric. So I'm truly proud of this factor of what we are doing. And it gives me more than that. The good thing is, like I was telling you about the requirements of biofuel. we are currently in a deficit of the biofuel scenario. If it's in regards to bioethanol or in biocoal, our need has become this much, and our supply in comparison to the demand is quite low. So it gives me great pride to inform that yes, we are coming up with the first international standard plant with one of the best technologies in the world, with above 1,000 tons capacity of biocoal generation. Apart from that, our focus is to establish, implement, and sustain with clean industrialized solutions pan India, generating biofuels with clean energy that shall reduce the carbon emissions in comparison to the utilization of fossils. Like I explained in the chart earlier, it would reduce the carbon emissions against our capacity that we will be able to supply, bringing how do I say, relief from carbon emitting points to up to 850%, which that I think is a great thing. And this has all been very possible, all thanks to our good industrial policies and governing body of Government of India. We surely believe that with the current issues relative to the carbon emissions, this is an ideal and current most prompt response in order to fulfill this need and requirement globally. If you look at Europe, for that matter, the bioenergy sector, the biocoal sector, the biofuel sector is above $9.7 billion. In India, it is a newly emerged industry, which in itself is a great thing. This is a very good step that has been made. Now, what we need to do is to have the right people invest into this sector so that the future of bioenergy, clean energy, electrical vehicles and electrical solutions increases. I personally feel that within the next 2 decades, or hopefully in lesser time, we will be able to see a much cleaner and sustainable India. That is for sure. As long as our focus and our investments in the right sector of bioenergy can be maintained. That is what I feel.
So wow, I mean, we really, really need these solutions in India. So, and Auric is seriously doing great work right now. It's seriously commendable.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sir, I hope we've got a few questions in the chat right now. So Misha is asking, how do you think the issue of green protection be rectified with relevance to the expanding horizon of capitalism, as imagining a world without it would be too
I'm sorry,
utopian
I'm unable to hear you properly.
Okay, so I'll repeat the question. How do you think the issue of green protection be rectified with relevance to the expanding
green protection?
Green protection. I think Misha, can you unmute yourself?
Hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
I just wanted to ask that because, as you've already said, that with industrialization, the climate and the world started to see a deterioration, right? But even now,
yes.
But even now, when we're looking at capitalism as an established institution today, we see that the boundaries of it is expanding at an exponential rate. And to imagine a world without capitalism would be too utopian to even consider in an idea. So, what do you think? How do you think a balance can be made with green protection, with rectifying climate change, and a developing of capitalism today?
Well, ma'am, as I told you that how we can change this scenario, rectify the solution of the green protection is only through these methods that our global leaders are already making. But through capitalism, what is most important to look into this is not just commitments, but executions of these kind of policies. And more than that, interest of people. You know how we can change this is through the youth. If the youth decides to change it, if the youth decides to not just take this as a point of putting a finger at somebody else as to this was not there, this was there, by not just questioning it, but making an effort directly ourselves, that is where you change this. what happened during the pandemic? We all learned something from this natural calamity or whatsoever kind of calamity as the COVID-19 situation we saw. We as humans have the capability to change at the verge where we see an issue. When we have no other option, we have the capability to become better. And once we see something like this, as long as we believe in it and we want to make that change, yes, we can definitely overcome through all these issues. Then the issues that have been there, the flaws that we have made as a human race, in regards to the green protection or in regards to the capitalism and other factors, are all very pitiless issues. It's all up to us and the forthcoming generations. That is what we need to understand.
Well said, sir. I hope Misha's question has been answered. I must say
Yes.
you've answered very well.
Thank you very much. And I would request you to just have one final question as I have to leave as well.
Okay, so one
Thank
final
you.
question is from Gitesh. Sir, how can afforestation be promoted in the overcrowded cities?
Afforestation be promoted in the overcrowded cities? Well, mostly I think what the government and NGOs and other people in the private sector, what they need to be doing is to promote the welfare of forestation through plantation of more trees. But more than that, I think, we are in the overpopulated cities. The biggest problem is that preservation of these kind of areas is not really there. So certain sectors, certain places, areas need to be defined so that we can overcome this issue. As long as those areas are defined and people are making enough kind of improvements in order to improve the forestation scenario, I think we are good to go. But like I said, space is always going to be a problem as long as we don't learn to mind those spaces and utilize them for the greener, not just for the greater, but for the greener good.
True, sir. Very true.
Agreed, sir.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. It
Thank you
was
very much.
great having you, and the inspiring words you've said today. I must say that I'm sure everyone here is very enlightened by them and inspired by them. And just thank you so much. It was a privilege to have you here, sir.
No, it was all
Thank
my
you
pleasure.
so much, sir.
I'm really grateful to have been on this platform in order to share my views regarding the environment and clean energy concerns and the other questions that I could help people with. And I thank you for this very good opportunity. And you guys are doing a good job. So congratulations to you as well.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you,
Sir.
sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys, for joining, and thank you so much for being so patient and listening. Okay, so I think we can end the meeting, end the webinar here. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much, guys.